Hej Klaus, vi bad en tidigare branschkollega till dig att ge en hisspitch, en elevator pitch på bolaget. Skulle du kunna göra det också? Ja. Berätta kort, vad är ni för ett bolag? Tänker det är en lång hiss men att den tar slut någon gång?
Okay, but I will do it in English. So
sure,
I will show my first slide actually. Yeah. We all know this erectile dysfunction is a patient, is a disease that hits all of us. So we know there's many patients, and we all think that extra Viagra or pills like that is actually giving relief to all the patients. But this is not the case. Actually, if you look at the statistics shown on the screen here, among a mixed population, you are looking at between 30 to 40% that do not respond to the current treatment. And if you look in the special subgroups like diabetic patients, you have up to 50% of the patient not responding to the current treatment. So of course there's an unmet medical need, and this is actually what we are targeting. So we found a new mechanism of action, which is actually so we can hit or target the patient group that are non-responders to the current treatment, and that will provide us with a market space, which is in 2025 would be more than 100 million patients. So that's in short what we are doing.
Så 100 miljoner människor i västvärlden, eller hur definierar ni?
The number arises the US, Europe and Japan. Yeah. So not including China and
så vilka andra företag har också identifierat denna unmet medical need? So hur ser konkurrenssituationen ut?
Yeah, the competition and the market competition is actually really interesting, because if you look in the pipeline, most of the drugs that are currently being developed is just an elongation of the current what's called PD5E inhibitors, which are Viagra type-like medicine. So what they're trying to do, most of the companies, is trying to make new formulations. So they either have a faster onset or they have their work over the whole weekend, but it's not that much new technology coming into the market. So actually we are probably the only one who's really found a new mechanism of action bringing into the market. And you can say that some of the other things we've seen in the pipeline have been there for a long time, but has never really gone through the clinical trials. So I think we're in a unique position there.
Så du säger det finns många andra projekt som har legat och kokat i prekliniskt men inte kommit vidare. Hur kommer det sig om vi borrar i den frågan lite grann?
So how our plan is going to be, well, so was that the question?
Yeah.
Okay. So what our plan is now to start producing the actual pharmaceutical ingredient, and then we're going to do the toxicology, and then we'll go initiate the first in-man clinical trials in a year and a half from now. So that's where we are.
I do this in English also. It's total confusion with the languages. So what sort of challenges do you see in your preclinical development plan?
That's exactly a lot of projects in biotech. They're facing a lot of challenges going from the preclinical, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong in the toxicology and the safety pharmacology. But actually the project that our drug candidate is very different from a lot of other companies. And I actually brought a slide for that, because it's a very attractive drug candidate. So we know it's only one compound that is working out in a closely related SAR. SAR means structure and activity relationship. So there's compounds that are very similar, but only these drugs work. We have a lot of data on it. We have a PK, which is the pharmacokinetics, so we know how it's distributed in the body. We know how it's the metabolism of the drug is. And we have the most important thing is that we have the preliminary toxicology results from what's called HERG and HEPTA. HERG is a heart failure problem. So that's I would say between 60% of all biotech companies fail in the preclinical or going to the clinical trials alone on this parameter. And here we see no indication that it's involved in any HERG activity. And the same with the HEPTA.
But you still have a number of steps to take before you can actually start clinical trials.
Yes,
so
because
how could you summarize those steps? You said in the next 18 months?
Yeah,
so
the next 18 months. So the steps that we're going to do is, of course, all the toxicology that we have now is non-GLP. So it has to be GLP, good laboratory practice, to be approved by the regulatory authorities. So what we're going to do now, as soon as we get rolling, as we are planning that right now, is to start the API production. As soon as we have the first batch of the API production, the actual pharmaceutical ingredient, we can initiate the toxicology studies that we need to provide and the safety pharmacology. And then we put that all into a package, and we file a CTA, a clinical trial application, which has to be approved before we can go to man. So that's the steps from here on.
Yeah. And in terms of, I'll take one step back. Your relationship to Saniona, just to clarify, what was it, and what is it, and what does it matter to investors? A lot of people know about Saniona; it's quite well known.
But I was
just describe.
Today, there's no relationship, except that we have a lot of the same shareholders, because Saniona was a co-founder of the company, together with the 4 founders, which of 2 of them are here present today. So what they from their 60% of the company, they distribute out to all the shareholders in Saniona, because they felt that a lot of these value that they sold out to this new company belonged to the shareholders of Saniona. So we're actually very pleased now that we have more than 4,000 shareholders, which is quite good for a small company like ours.
And why didn't it fit inside Saniona?
Oh, that's probably mostly a question for Saniona, which I can only speculate in.
It's a good question.
But I think for us that it was in our group of people, we are experts on what's called active transporters, or transporter proteins, and which is a special group of proteins. And also we have a lot of expertise in ED among the management group, especially Ulf Simonsen, who's here today. He's one of the leading ED experts in Denmark. So that's why it was a good fit for our group to start it. So that was why we decided to go on with the project.
Yeah. And in terms of a timeline, I think do you have a...
Yeah, I think I have a timeline.
You mentioned 18 months, but in terms of funding, getting into clinical trials, how would you summarize the next 2 years? Say?
Yeah, so you can say what we are planning to do is to send out a memorandum in December and raise funds in Q1 in 2017. And we would very much hope that we can get started with producing the API before to save time in the long run. But the fund that we are seeking to raise will allow us to submit a CTA, so they get a clinical approval for initiating a trial. And then we need to further funding for conducting the phase 1 trial and the phase 2 trial, which is the most likely going to be the exit for this
So
company.
18 months from now, you plan to raise money in the first quarter of next year?
Yes.
And then again, 18 months
For
later?
conducting clinical trials, yes.
Yeah.
So, and what magnitude of financing do you need now as opposed to next time?
So you can say it's pretty much going to be the same deal. It's going to be the same amount. I cannot give you an exact number, but it's not going to be much different. We already identified the CROs and the hospitals who could do the clinical trials for us. And the clinical trials within erectile dysfunction are not that expensive compared to a lot of other trials. So the expenses won't be much more than what we are seeking now.
Can you give us a number, a range?
Yeah, I would say around 20 million in the first
okay.
round, and same one for the next one. So I think we can generate. Of course, it's always dangerous talking about numbers for the future, but a number between 60 and 80 million, we can have a clinical proof of concept in phase 2, which we can sell.
And your plan is the classic plan is to find a partner after phase 2. Is there any other way to the market?
I think the easiest way or the best way for us would be to find a partner after phase 2, because that's the biggest value inflection point that we have in the project.
Yeah. And this is one project, one business, one company, one project?
No. Actually, we got a lot more in the pipeline. But what we are pushing forward right now is the ED, because that's the drug candidate that is the advanced the furthest, or when we took it over. We actually got 2 other indications in our line, and one is depression, and we got one for the treatment of neuropathic pain as well. So we have 2 drugs there, which we are 2 drug candidates. We'll try and pursue in partnerships to fund it that way.
And how are they linked? This project 2 and 3?
You can say that they're linked, that they're actually targeting the same proteins, but they have different binding profiles. So in the proteins that we bind, there's a family of 3 different, the dopamine, the serotonin, and the net transporter. And they have different binding profiles to these targets. So that's why they're all related. So it's the same technology, but they just act on different indications.
And how much information have you shared on those other projects? Should investors look at those, or should they just
we have so far we just indicated the patents that we got, so you know what patents are in, but we haven't made a clear development plan for those projects yet. We are already now seeking to find partners for this, and we have a few interested partners in conducting a partnership with us.
Can you say something about the people in the company, staff, consultants, CROs, who is doing what?
So I started a little bit with saying Ulf is here today, who's the CMO in the company, and then also today our new CFO, Torgeir Våge, is here. So I think actually maybe that's the slide I brought here. So
how convenient.
How convenient, yeah. So Torgeir Våge is an experienced CFO who's done a lot of small startup biotechs. And also with the capital are funded, he has been raising funds for going to the stock market before. So he's a good asset for bringing into us. Then we have Michael Thompson, who's a very experienced preclinical developer. So taking things from the preclinic to the clinical trials, which is exactly what we're doing. He's actually educated by FDA, the Food and Drug Administration in the US, on toxicology and safety pharmacology. And he's been director in a number of companies, taking these from small, and up to real large companies like Novo and Novartis. So he's been involved. He's also started a few companies himself that he's actually sold after phase 2 clinical proof of concept. So he's a really experienced guy getting in. And then we have Ulf, which I already mentioned. And then we have Dan Peters, our medicinal chemist, who has actually developed these compounds in the first place. So.
And these are full-time staff
No.
or a combination?
So you can say that there's a little bit, well, a lot of companies on the Aktietorget are virtual. We are very much virtual. So you can say the only one on the contract is myself, because you have to be that by the rules of a Danish company. So the rest is hired as consultants. So they simply come whatever hours they work on the company, they get paid for that. So that's we try to make it a lean organization as possible. And also we have no lab spaces. All the lab is either outsourced to a CRO or is done in a research collaboration with Århus University, where Ulf is based. So we have access to the equipment we need for conducting trials, and that will especially be interesting when we start looking at the two other indications that we're looking at.
So the preclinical work has been done and it will be done at Århus University.
So all the preclinical work that needs to be approved for the authorities will be done at CROs, contract research organizations.
Going back to the market or your ED product, what's the pricing situation? What kind of market potential are we talking about? I mean, Viagra is a very famous and very large product, Cialis as well, but for your kind of product, what do you...
So you can say that if you look at the prices for Cialis and Viagra before it went out of patent, that's probably the pricing we are looking at to get. You cannot say that, of course, there will be a competition between the current treatment and the new treatment, but it is really important to recognize that our treatment is helping the non-responders to the current treatment. So actually, they cannot get relief from whatever is on the market. So there will be a pretty good pricing on that. So we're not competing with a generic pricing. So we'll get a premium pricing because it's a new people who never got treated before.
So how would you describe the market potential? You said 100 million people.
Well, of course, when you say 100 million, that's the people that's suffering from ED, and it's probably one of those diseases that are underdiagnosed because a lot of people are a little bit ashamed of talking about this problem. But we know in the US, for example, there's 16 million people who is using these pills regularly. And then you say, okay, so is that the total number of the market? So is that 30% who's not getting relief from that? Or is this just the patient that know they can get relief? So maybe we have another 16 that are not getting relief. Okay. So of course the number is not 100 million that will get with one stroke, but there's quite a significant patient group. So if we can have a targeted patient group of 20 to 25 million that is actually using worldwide, then I think it's still a very good business and profitable. So I didn't even mention our board. Would you have time for that?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So actually, we are a Danish company and we are founded in Denmark, but we've forgotten this there. We have a board of directors where we actually got a Swede, Magnus Persson, heading the board. And Magnus has a lot of experience in both Aktietorget and First North, with running both IPOs and also selling companies, taking them to clinical trials. So that's been a real asset for us to get him aboard and improve more experience in the senior management. Then we have Henrik Moltke, who's been with Neurosearch. He's been with Novo Nordisk, and quite recently he sold CBS Microdevice to an American company. So, and he's bringing in a lot of experience in management, financing strategy, and also doing performing IPOs. So this. And last we have Peter Holm, another Swede from Lund, who's actually a patent attorney. So, and that's of course bringing us in because all these compounds we have in the pipeline, we have to, keep on making sure that we have the right patent strategy.
Yes, could you mention your patent position as well?
Yeah. So the patent but the patent position and the current state is that they are what's called the IPED 2015 compound for the treatment of erectile dysfunction is a composition of matter patent that's running until 2030. So it's quite a strong patent because it's composition matter. It's covering the US alone, so we don't have a composition of matter patent in Europe. So what we are trying to seek is a formulation patent in Europe, and also we go for the exclusive rights which you are granted when you bring a new market within. So
you have a patent situation, a strong position in the US until 2030, and you're applying for patents in Europe, and you expect to get exclusivity just by bringing a new substance.
And also treating it on a group of that's not been treated before. Yes.
Do you want to add something? Tell us something more about the coming IPO.
Yeah, I can. But that's kind of related to that. I think we're coming to this IPO, and we'll send out the memorandum in the end of the year and be ready in Q1. But I think one of the things that I'd like to highlight why I think we're a really good investment, and we actually spoke about quite a few things today, that actually there is a clear medical need for these patients. So we have a large group of patients that are not getting a treatment, and it is important that we can help them and their partners. We having a drug candidate is very efficacious, and we have a strong preclinical data package. So we have a lot of these data that normally kills the project. That's already been done. Now we had to redo it in GLP so it can be approved for going to the human trials. And we have the potential to become the first line of treatment for these non-responders. So that's giving us a big market, right? And then lastly, I think we have a strong IP position, we have strong management, and we can be within a clinical proof of concept within 3 to 3.5 years.
Okay. Thank you very much, Klaus.
And if you have any questions afterwards, we will be here. So please come, Ulf and Torga and I, we're here the whole day. So please come by.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.